What's an example of toxic positivity that people don't seem to realize? Not to be confused with survivorship bias, which is a concept we're in. For instance, people say that the music of the 80s was better than ours today. However, the reason for this is that we only remember the good music from the 80s, whereas we cannot avoid the bad of today. In 40 years, we will probably be saying the same thing about the 2010s we are saying about the 80s nowadays, because we all collectively decided to forget the bad stuff. That you've got to have it all, or your life is wasted. You've got to travel. You've got to have a soulmate. You've got to have an outstanding career. You've got to have a brilliant record of your adventures. You've got to have kids or pedigree pets. You've got to go to university. You've got to have a business. If you're not constantly at 100% doing something productive, you're wasting time. And implicit in many of these conversations is the idea that not having one or more of these is because you are a quitter or are lazy. There's a whole hell of a lot of people desperate to start a family, business, and travel and cannot because they have practical concerns, like paying rent, or paying for that degree, or caring for a relative with cancer. Recently had people egg me on to go buy a house because I'm an adult now and it makes absolutely no sense. I have no use for a house at this stage in my life. I don't think it signifies any sort of an accomplishment, especially in this economy. I have no need nor want to anchor myself in my current city either, but a lot of the people around here just care about the optics and it's just sad. I made a choice in my very early 20s that I wanted to waste time. I moved rural. I got a seasonal job, 4 months out of the year one just waste time. Sure, I can pick up a part-time gig in the winter but I hate snow. I make $60K/year but live off of $35K, putting the rest into retirement. I've had much more time to myself to waste instead giving life to capitalism like the majority of people. Wasting time is glorious. Downplaying disabilities, especially visible ones and illness in general, all because you think it is encouraging or nice. Just treat me/us/them as normal people. I don't want pity. I have accepted this reality. Disabilities are only a minor aspect of the person. Try to see through it, and treat them like you'd treat any other person, even if that means you withhold favorable treatment. Oh God. I hate when people act like your disability is some horrific, life-ending problem for you. Yeah, it's not ideal, but you adapt to it and it's just one part of your overall life. It's in the same vein as people who say things like I couldn't live like that. Yes, you could. For people who acquire a disability past a certain age, there's an initial period where it does shatter your whole world, but then you adapt to it and your life goes on. Disabilities are only a minor aspect of the person. 20 years ago when I was in nursing school, we learned to use person-first language. As people are people, they are not their disability. So you wouldn't say, disabled person, you'd say, person with a disability. It's been a bit strange for me to read about autism now, and how they prefer disability-first language. I thought we were meant to say, person with autism. But now it's changed to autistic person. It's so uncomfortable for me to say that. It feels like I'm being degrading to the person when in fact, they like that term. I've got to forget my, now clearly outdated, training. It's a learning curve. Every time I mention my hobby husbands, they instantly start a pity party and assume he is in a wheelchair. He actually runs marathons. On a daily basis we don't discuss it much. It is just a normal relationship. But when you tell people, they think that the whole relationship is nothing but illness and obsession over it all the time every day. They don't realize that we have a pretty normal existence together. This is a great one. I have a work friend who's missing multiple muscles, part of his body, from a muscular cancer when he was 4 years old. He's missing one leg, from the knee, one tricep and one side of his chest. He's around 5 feet 4 inches as well. The guy is as normal, horny as nearly any 24-year-old I know and constantly talking about girls. Now that he's a good friend, I realized he actually prefers making light of the situation rather than people feeling sorry for him. He told me I've been like this for 20 years plus. If it happened at 14 or 15 I might be insecure, but I literally don't have a memory when I wasn't like this. I have a couple friends who refuse to let you ever be sad, or mad, or disappointed, or experience any negative emotion at all. Hell, when I told one of them that I was experiencing side effects from my COVID jab, she told me it was just the nocebo effect and that I wasn't really sick but I was just so negative that I'd made myself feel sick. So, if I was more positive, I'd feel fine. Anytime that I have an issue, or a complaint, anytime I want to vent or be upset about something in my life, these two friends will just repeat, "I'm sure things will be fine. You'll feel better. Just cheer up." Those aren't helpful statements, and I think it's harmful to say that having a negative emotion is a bad thing. Why can't I be sad? Why can't someone just say, "You're right, that sucks, and I'm sorry that it is that way for you," instead of saying just keep your head up? That's so isolating. Honestly, I would have been so pissed if a friend told me the side effects from my COVID jab were nocebo effect. I woke up in the middle of the night with really strong fever, shivers, massive headache and nausea, and was stuck in bed all day long the following day cause I could barely move a muscle, and any movement made my head hurt way too much. That headache lasted for several days too. Honestly, fuck people who downplay other people's experiences, feelings. I really can't stand people with this trait. This is like the ugh of toxic positivity, the inability to parse negative thoughts and feelings. If you don't give voice to when things are pissing you off, you don't develop the emotional vocabulary necessary to processing them. It's like you're trying to recite the alphabet to learn it and your friends keep cutting you off the letter P. You'll never fully learn how to spell anything if you don't learn the whole damn alphabet. So this is something I noticed in a lot of female-oriented forums. There's this push to always support each other and be positive, which can be good. What I've noticed is that people take someone disagreeing with them as some slight against them, and in some cases the moderators will just delete everything that isn't 100% supporting the person. It's bad. I disagreed with someone on a childcare forum about a really minor thing. You would think I sent them death threats with how they reacted. Eventually the moderators nuked all my comments because it was getting too toxic. It was literally a disagreement. The next day a post was made about how people in the forum need to stop being so rude and how we all need to support each other. It was a disagreement about body training. It was so freaking minor. If you can't handle a little bit of criticism or someone disagreeing with you, that's a problem. IDK if complaining about specific subreddits is allowed here, so I won't, but I will say a primary offender for the kind of thing you are talking about is a subreddit for a very large D&D stream. It's very common for all sorts of communities these days to say things like posy vibes only or no negativity, and as you say, will nuke certain comments that they feel break their rules with extreme prejudice. Fair enough, your sub, your rules. The problem is that this kills discussion, and makes the user experience honestly just exhausting and saccharine and superficial. It sucks when you want to talk about something that is exciting or uncomfortable or strange, but the community is only interested in blowing hot air up it. The problem, additional to the inability to handle criticism or disagreement, is that things don't get talked about. No change or feedback can happen from the community because no one talks about anything. They just post fan art, appreciation posts and shit memes. Thank you for this. I hate how the rules on subs like Ask Women basically preclude you having any interesting discussion, even if both people are completely respectful, because it'll somehow be considered derailing, invalidating or whatever other term they overuse and misinterpret. I actually enjoy talking to people who disagree with me, even if they're male or they don't fully understand what they're talking about. Have enough rules to keep the incels and other shitheads out, but that's it, amo. If you can't handle a little bit of criticism or someone disagreeing with you, that's a problem. I agree totally. I also see this in how some people talk about art, like as soon as something is artistic, it's sanctifiedly above reproach. It's wrong to point out anything off about proportions, or any room for improvement in the lines. Anything that's done poorly simply must be an artistic choice. There's just no way they didn't mean to make the proportions look slightly off. I find this particularly ironic because, like half of any art program, school is spent in critique. Critique is super important for artists to actually improve. It seems to be a thing in a lot of woke, for want of a better term, communities in general. You have to agree with their hive mind, or else you're letting the team down and playing into the hands of, insert non-woke boogeyman here. Women are allowed to disagree with other women. It's not a sexist attack that's helping the patriarchy if you don't agree with another woman's view on breastfeeding. Good vibes only in this house. That is emotionally unhealthy and leads to superficial relationships. True relationships require depth in discussing hurt and anger. You can't have good days unless you deal with the bad ones, too. I only want positive people around me. You want enablers. It's good to also have people around you who can offer constructive criticism in a healthy way. This one is so true, and I learned this the hard way. But in general, when someone is constantly dismissive towards others' negative feelings and demands only positive feedback, it is always a huge red flag. I worked at a job where there was this unhealthy forced positivity atmosphere, and I just had to get out after mere 3 years. These were actually the most pretentious and hateful people I have ever seen. It was basically a cult where you had to smile, never get angry, love everyone, and parrot the fable about best team ever, no matter how nasty the people were behind the fake smiles. Yuck. This is a perversion of the reality which is summed up in the movie Ratatouille. It's not that anyone can do anything they set their mind to, it's that someone good at something can come from anywhere. A brilliant scientist could be a minority, woman, could come from an impoverished background, could come from an impoverished country. The point is not that you can do anything, the point is that what you can do, you should not let people or your social status or circumstances hold you back from doing. The current state of hyper-competitiveness, individual worth and empowerment are the byproduct of long line of Western philosophy and capitalism. It sounds great, but in the words of Ayn Rand, this has taken the form of man as a heroic being, with his own happiness as the moral purpose of his life, with productive achievement as his noblest activity. In sum, your success is in your hands. If you don't succeed, it's your fault. We have an economy where if you're not exceptional, you're fucked. And rather than telling kids they don't have qualities necessary to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc., we try and convince them they are exceptional when in reality they're on the left side of the curve, literally setting up the vast majority of kids to be failures and blame them for the failure that is capitalism. Edits for clarification. My son had cancer when he was 5, now 15 and fine, and I began to detest the phrase his fight against cancer. He wasn't fighting, it wasn't a battle. He is sick and he had some great doctor with some powerful drugs that may or may not cure him, but he had absolutely nothing to do with the outcome other than following doctor's order. And people don't lose their fight with cancer, they are just sick and some fast replicating cells took over. That's it. Adding on to this, one of the things that really pissed me off during my father's cancer was the number of people who kept telling me that he was strong, and that medical science had come a long way, so there was always a possibility he could beat it. I was like, he's stage 4. The doctors already told us it was terminal. And frankly, continually telling me that there was still a chance he could survive wasn't actually making me feel better. It was just making it harder for me to come to terms with the fact that he was going to die. The idea that you can beat some illnesses by sheer willpower. This is extremely true for mental disorders. So damn many people have this idea that you can overcome mental disorders by just trying really hard. and don't need to seek professional help. Depression, just do things that make you happier. Avoidant personality disorder, just talk to people more until you get used to them. Any kind of trauma, just don't think about it. Like being overly optimistic about a physical disorder. Sure, it's not helping, but it's not doing a lot of damage. Overly optimistic about a mental disorder, good luck trying to get them the therapy they so badly need. Thank you for saying this. I'm dealing with this a lot right now. I have long COVID, and I've been through about 15-16 doctors who all tell me this isn't in their specialty, so they won't treat me. My family and friends keep trying to find a doctor and be patient. They don't understand how hard it is for someone as sick as I am to search for doctors and make the appointments. I've had appointments cancelled because the doctors are too busy with hospital duties due to COVID and can't take on an additional patient. I just don't have the energy to keep trying to find someone who will treat me, and I want my family and friends to respect my choice to just rest during this time, instead of having appointment after appointment that puts me in tears because no one will treat me. Those uplifting stories about people overcoming obstacles. For example, the boy who got a wheelchair built by a high school robotics club, the girl selling lemonade to buy her school supplies, and the kid who Home Depot built a walker for, just to name a few. Yes, it's awesome that people are helping and or working on making the best of a bad situation, but it's never asked how. Why are people in these situations to begin with? What's the source? How can we truly fix this? These stories, usually referred to as trauma porn, showcase people being able to temporarily fix a bad situation, but when you look at the bigger picture, it's like a band-aid on a gaping chest wound. The emphasis on smiles. Some people tell random strangers on the street to smile. Mind your business, I say. Maybe they just went through something bad and aren't happy enough to smile. Even if they are, why should they advertise their emotion to you? Whenever a photo was taken, you're ordered to bare your teeth. It's not enough to smile, you have to do it in a particular way or you're ruining the photo. People in a service job are expected to plaster corporate smiles on their faces whenever potential customers are around, even though it's been called creepy and disingenuous for decades. Totally unrelated, since it's not really toxic positivity, but it reminded me of growing up. Even though my family was abusive and there was nothing happy about my growing up, we had to pose for pictures that would make us look like a normal loving family in case people got suspicious. I was a generally smiley, outgoing kid, at least when I was at school, but definitely not around my family. In my child brain, not smiling was the only way I could think of to cry for help in case someone saw the photo and recognized my distress. But if I didn't look genuinely thrilled, I would get in trouble and they wouldn't stop until they got a good picture. So my plan went out the window. But the plus side is that I have a very convincing smile even when it's fake. This makes me wonder if I was born into the wrong culture. It could be a thing in other cultures, but as a person of the US, I truly despise the American smiling culture. It's premised on a faulty assumption that smiling and happiness and smiling go hand in hand. They don't, and it normalizes a serious invasion of personal space. What facial expression I wear is something as intimate to me as my choice of clothing. While it's reasonable to expect me to keep a decent face in public, as with modest dress, asking me to put on a specific face for others' comfort and convenience just seemed deeply intrusive. People shouldn't expect me to smile any more than they should expect me to wear a certain piece of clothing. As someone who was a straight A student in school, I really disliked these awards. In grade school, I more or less always performed at the top of my class. I aced every test, every class and everything, but every single time everyone was given the same rewards, the same medals, the same everything. Every time we all were given the same prize, I died a little inside, because I felt like all my hard work and effort were for naught. Why should I try my heart out when Billy, who barely passed the test, got the exact same reward as I did? Why should I care? Unfortunately, this is still affecting me as an adult, and I'm still afraid to give 100% to anything work or academically related, because I'm still scared of that sting of disappointment. that my time and energy are all wasted and would have been better used to entertain myself instead. /rant. Most participation awards were never about people not feeling left out. Adult participation awards were usually the result of colleges that couldn't be arsed to meet the requirements of accreditation boards, so if they gave out exam certificates they'd be called fake and meaningless. So instead, they just give out certificates that you've been on the course. See, if there was no exam, then they can't be scamming people with unaccredited exams. Galaxy brain there. As for school, those were 100% for the demands of the parents, not the kids. Not too surprising, as formerly upwardly mobile parents are often hugely nervous about their kids' performance.